There
Bing.
we go. Yes,
Recording
we
in
are.
progress.
We are being on the air now. Welcome
We
to
are.
Dream Idiots.
Hey,
My name is Morris, and the other fellow there is Bryan.
hey.
And each week we tell stories to each other, bring you along for the ride. And the sad story from today, Bryan, is the loss of Mr. James Earl Jones that we were talking about just before we got on the microphone. Well,
Yes, the band that launched 1,000 voiceover careers or something. I don't know, but yeah. So the king of the voice.
my favorite James Earl Jones scene is from Field of Dreams, where Kevin Costner comes to his apartment to try to drag him out, and he plays a reclusive writer who doesn't want to be around people.
Terrence
And he
Mann,
picks he
right?
picks up a he picks up a pipe, and Kevin Costner says, "What are you going to do with that pipe?" And James Earl Jones says, "I'm going to hit you with it till you leave me alone." I had no idea he was 93. That's a hell of a
Yeah,
run.
yeah,
Rest in
yeah.
peace,
Very cool.
good sir. Bryan, the good folks can find us just about anywhere because they're listening to us now. We're on most, if not all, platforms for podcatching
Hmm.
and whatnot. And then we also have some other places they can find us. Is that not true?
Yes, if you can, if you don't mind, please go on whichever platform you're on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, whatever, and shoot us 5 stars, shoot us a review. Got a couple of new reviews recently, which was nice and hugely appreciated. That'd be great. And reviews, even if you just drop in your favorite recipe for kung pao chicken, that's fine. But doesn't matter. Anything is fine. You can drop us a line at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com. Send us some story ideas. My story this week actually came from a listener.
Hmm.
Because I check the email and Morris doesn't. Ha! I get the benefit of that.
I've got
Check us
my
out.
sources.
Check us out on dreamidiots.com. We got some cool merch there. And then Facebook and Instagram, we are at Dream Idiots. And we're even on Patreon, although it's out of date. I need to spend some time posting the videos there. If you want to go on Patreon and pay $5 a month to get the video of two men talking, it's titillating stuff, I tell you. And that's out there for you. But you can also go on Patreon and listen to just the audio there for free without having to pay. So there you have it.
Kung Pao chicken reminds me of cashew chicken. Cashew chicken from Shu Yu's, the long gone Chinese restaurant in San Antonio.
All right.
Uh,
Number seven,
for
Franklin.
a mutual number 35, hot and spicy. Um, my boys were blown away when I took them in to introduce them to Shu, and she said, "Hello, Franklin. How you doing? 35 hot and spicy." And one of them turned to the other and said, "He wasn't lying. She did remember." Uh, oh man, I kind of want some cashew chicken now. Anyway, I get to go first because it's an even numbered episode. Is that
Hmm.
correct, Bryan?
C.
As we always do it. All right, here we go. In the early 1970s, Jim Sullivan's musical career was at a crossroads. He had two albums under his belt: 1969's UFO, originally on the Monty label, and a self titled release from 1972 on the Playboy label, neither of which had sold very well, despite his popularity on the West Coast music scene. And the Playboy label was indeed owned by Hugh Hefner. His first foray into performing was with a San Diego based group called the Survivors in the mid 1960s. As a solo act, he appeared regularly at the Lighthouse in Redondo Beach and at the Lindy Opera House in Los Angeles. The Raft, a well known Malibu hangout, was often his home base, and he drew regular supportive fans there. In the audience were celebrities like Lee Majors, Farrah Fawcett, Vic Morrow, Lee Marvin, and Harry Dean Stanton. Barbara Sullivan, Jim's wife, said the Raft was packed every time Jim performed. His voice was described as rich and Fred Neil like by Steve Leggett, the writer for All Music Guide. The Fred Neil comparison is one of the highest order. Neil was part of the Greenwich Village music scene of the late 50s and early 60s, and to this day is held in high regard by musicians, critics, historians, and fans. So that was a great person to be compared to, Fred Neil.
Hmm.
He wrote Everybody's Talking, which was made popular by Harry Nilsson in Midnight Cowboy. Fred Neil wrote that one. So to be compared to someone like Fred Neil is the highest compliment. Jim Sullivan also had minor cachet in Hollywood, having appeared in an uncredited role in the Dennis Hopper directed film Easy Rider from 1969. He played a guitarist in the hippie commune. Sullivan partied with Hopper and his fan from the Raft, Harry Dean Stanton, up and down the California coast. Sullivan also claimed an appearance on a variety show with Jose Feliciano, although I was unable to track down the specifics of that variety show. Amongst all of this, Jim and Barbara Sullivan had a strong marriage. They had met in high school and married in their early 20s. They had a son and a daughter. Sometimes the Sullivans would head to Malibu at night, sit on the beach, and stare at the stars. They talked often of life on other planets and what it might look like. Jim was curious about the world, both seen and unseen, and was described as very spiritual, and that would often appear in his songs. Barbara worked at Capitol Records while Jim polished his singing and guitar playing and gigged around Southern California. One of his ardent fans, a man named Al Dobbs, became his unofficial promoter, taking Jim's demos to record executives everywhere and anytime he could. He tried all over LA and Nashville. Barbara's co-workers at Capitol pushed Jim music with executives, but to no success. Jim wasn't the kind of person who would self-promote. It wasn't in his personality. He just liked to play and have fun, said Dobbs. Fellow musician Jim Hugart said that Jim was not a pushy guy, and you needed someone to be pushy, to act like a jerk on your behalf. Sullivan's manager, Bob Ginter, pushed him to play at as many clubs and as often as he could. Sullivan's first album, UFO, from 1969, maybe didn't capture Jim's performance style, which was usually just him, his songs, and his guitar, and an audience in front of him. UFO boasts a backing trio plus string and horn arrangements. The effort is no less stunning, just not apparently typical of Jim Sullivan performances. Another fellow musician, and for that matter, another guy named Jim O'Keefe, said, "Everyone told Sully he had great, great songs. The problem was with the albums, which had all that brass on them. I know all the people on there, they were some great talents, but they tried to turn Jim into something he was not." And so Sullivan decided to leave Southern California and head east, thinking Nashville might be a better fit for him professionally. A lot of people he trusted had given him the same advice. He left on March 4th, 1975, with his family staying behind until he figured out things in Tennessee. He would meet up with Barbara's sister Kathy and her husband there. Kathy had been with Jim and the Survivors as a vocalist, so she was familiar with her brother-in-law's talent. Jim's destination was Goodlettsville, just outside of Nashville. On March 5th, he called Barbara from the road, having presumably driven old Route 66 through Needles into Arizona and then into New Mexico. He was past Albuquerque, out in Santa Rosa. Are you familiar with Santa Rosa, New Mexico?
I've been to Santa Rosa in Mexico several times.
I figured you might have. When he placed his call home to San Diego at 3:15 Pacific time. According to Barbara, he was staying in Santa Rosa overnight. When she asked why he was waiting until the next day to leave instead of pushing on as planned, he reportedly said to her, "You wouldn't believe it if I told you." She pressed her husband for more information, but all he said was, "Forget it. Just forget I said anything. I'll call you from Nashville." It was the last time Barbara would speak to him. Barbara called the San Diego Police Department on March 14th. He's now missing 9 days, to file a missing persons case, only to be told she would have to file it in Los Angeles, which was Jim's point of departure. Jerry Sullivan contacted the Santa Rosa police on March 17th, 12 days missing, and learned that his brother had been detained on March 5th, given a sobriety test, which he passed and then released. On the 21st of March, 16 days missing, Jerry received a call from the Santa Rosa police with some information. Jim's VW Bug had been in police impound since March 8th. The car was found 23 miles from the highway on the outskirts of the Giannetti Ranch. The family had spotted Jim's car lights from 10 miles away in their house. Mrs. Giannetti, accompanied by a couple of hands, approached Jim and asked if he had a problem, to which he allegedly responded, "No, do you?" Miss Giannetti responded with, "Well, yes, you're on my property." They parted company with Jim still at his car. 3 days later, a neighbor called the state police for the Giannettis to report an abandoned automobile. Officers found the car locked. Jim's wallet with ID and other belongings were inside. No key for the car was found. On March 22nd and 23rd, 17 and 18 days missing, search parties investigated the area, but no other traces of Jim Sullivan were found out there. A family friend visited the Santa Rosa motel Jim had stayed in and found his guitar and suitcase. On March 28th, 23 days missing, the Santa Rosa police talked to Barbara and passed along the following pieces of information. 1. All hospitals in the area had been checked. 2. His car was non-operational. 3. The motel bed had not been slept in. 4. The room key was on the dresser. 5. There were no signs of a struggle. And finally, 6. No calls of any kind were made from the hotel room. Have you heard this story before, Bryan?
No.
Okay.
No idea. The
It
car
seemed
was
to be
the car was operational where it was found?
non-operational.
Not operational.
Non-operational.
So
Uh, uh,
he drove it out there and it died.
yep, on the outskirts of the Genetti Ranch and the desert.
Wow. Okay.
It seemed to be a consensus in Santa Rosa that Jim had gotten a lift from someone after his car broke down, and after that, disappeared. The FBI was called in, but had no authority to operate because there was no indication of foul play, and there was no federal crime involved. Barbara's sister Kathy called the Santa Rosa police and spoke to an officer named either Garrett or Garnett, who claimed that Jim was not in jail, but should be, given his refusal to pay his fine. She called back and went up the chain of the command to the sheriff, who claimed he didn't know what Garnett or Garrett was talking about, as there was no fine on record against Jim Sullivan. And that was the extent of the search. Next year will mark the 50th anniversary of Jim Sullivan's disappearance, and there are still no definitive answers. As I often say in cases like this, I don't know what happened out there, but something happened. Perhaps it's just as the Santa Rosa police speculated. Jim got a ride from someone he shouldn't have. Or maybe the Santa Rosa police had something to do with it. At least one officer there had a problem with Jim.
Right.
Or perhaps he had some kind of break out there in the desert and walked away from everything. Musician Jim O'Keefe puts it this way: whether it was intentional or not, I believe Jim just disappeared. After all, we're talking about New Mexico, where you can take anything out into the desert and within minutes, it's gone. Barbara Sullivan has another possible solution, one more hopeful. When he disappeared, poof, I first thought he finally made it. They came and got him. That would have pleased him so much. Jim O'Keefe seems to share this hopeful conclusion, but only every now and then. There is no one who would rather see the UFO come deposit my friend back on the planet again. If any of his songs are true, let's see Jimmy again. The songs Jim O'Keefe talking about are most likely the ones on the 1969 UFO album. Here are some instances that perhaps point to a resolution to the mystery of Jim Sullivan. And I've got lyrics here from 3 of his songs. From the Highways song: city life ain't my cup of tea. Some take it like gulls do the sea, needing highways, highways. I'm going to sit right here where I am. From UFO, the title cut: there is something happening that isn't too clear, just a little different than in previous years. I think that happiness is very near. I'm checking out the show with a glassy eye, looking at the sun dancing through the sky. Did he come by UFO? Did he come by UFO? And finally, from So Natural: it's my time to go. I just want the wind to blow my ashes till they're completely out of sight. And they won't say that he looked so natural, he had his hair combed just right. It's my time to go. I just want the wind to blow my ashes till they're completely out of sight.
Wow.
Wherever Jim Sullivan is now, I hope he's singing his songs his way, with his guitar and his voice and an appreciative audience. And that is a very brief look into the mysterious disappearance of Jim Sullivan out in the New Mexico desert in March of 1975.
Wow. Yeah, very cool.
Sources for this piece were James Allen's album review of UFO from allmusic.com, Steve Leggett's biography section on Jim Sullivan at allmusic.com, Andrea Lyle's excellent 2010 essay in the liner notes to the 2019 vinyl reissue of UFO, which I listened to several times while writing this story, the album. And that's from Light in the Attic Records of 2019. And of course, Jim Sullivan's lyrics to Highways, UFO, and So Natural from the 1969 album UFO, originally pressed on the Monty label, and Wikipedia for a few basic ideas. This
Super
is actually,
interesting.
it is, and it's, it's the kind of thing that you read about and you really hope that he was picked up by a UFO out there in the desert,
Right.
because all other answers are very, very sad. I
Yeah.
can't I can highly recommend his. I've not heard his second one, his self-titled release, but his first album, UFO, is quite good. It is a he does have a very rich voice, and
Hmm.
he's a very interesting songwriter to boot. This is
So
actually the. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no, what were you gonna say?
So when you were reading his lyrics, there was something kind of Towns Van Zandt about him a little bit, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Particularly the part about my ashes getting blown away. My
Yeah.
God, that yeah,
Yeah.
because Towns Van Zandt could be a real downer. He's a great songwriter, but
All those show
and
tunes he wrote. Oh, wait, that's
and
no.
and all of the references, like on Highway, clearly that's exactly what he did. He left the city life for Nashville.
Right.
Um, just really it seems like one of those albums that is always considered a lost classic, which is a title that gets thrown around a lot, I think, with particularly albums from late 60s or early 70s. But when you find one that actually is a lost classic, yeah,
Hmm.
it's pretty special stuff.
Hmm.
Um, this is the first in an ongoing series I'm going to do called Missing Notes. So this is actually the title of the story is Missing Notes, Jim Sullivan, and I'm going to do at least three more stories on musicians who have disappeared.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'll be dolloping out these here and there as we go along.
So Ringo
And
Starr. Oh no, wait, he's still around.
I wanted Jim Sullivan to be the first because his music is one that has really hit me the most
Right.
out of the other folks we're going to be looking at through the course of the Missing Notes series. I don't know when I'll do the next one, but I've got them all
Yeah.
kind of lined up, ready to go. So
Yeah. That's fascinating stuff. So I mean, first of all, I have been through Santa Rosa several times. These days there ain't no, there's very little out there. I mean, I mean, there's an intersection there. So when you're driving from anywhere in Texas, trying to get to Albuquerque, Santa Fe, points north, driving to you, I mean, you drive through Santa Rosa and there's a T intersection, you turn left, there's a big ass gas station, and there's nothing else there. So, I mean, there may be a hotel, but that portion of New Mexico, well, most of the whole state is pretty barren, pretty empty. So there's nothing there in the way of life, commerce, anything. That part of the state is also flat as a pancake, and so very easy to wander off on a dirt road, and very easy that very plausible that his headlights could have been seen from a great distance because that's you're not in the mountains yet. It's high plateau, but it is flat,
mhm.
flat, flat. And so you go out there and your car dies, and then you decide to start walking, you're dead. Especially in the
Yeah,
60s. I mean, GPS out there today is wonky at
spotty at
best.
best.
Yeah, it's terrible. So yeah, so your car dies out there. Stay with your car because if you don't, you're dead.
Yeah, I think most likely I mean, Jim O'Keefe put it best when he said that he left his guitar behind and he would never do that.
Right,
So I think he met up with someone out there who wished him harm,
right.
and yeah, he's probably out in the desert somewhere. But like again, like Jim O'Keefe said, it just takes a minute for something to disappear out there. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you.
thank you. And now we go on to the. Do we have a curse word of the week this week, Brian?
Well, we have something a little bit different this
Oh,
week, tiny bit. I found a little. We've done enough of these now. I realize occasionally I think through because I sort of collect story ideas in three or four different ways in different formats, and then occasionally I think, oh, that'd be a funny story. Like, wait a minute, I did that already. Wait, did I? And I don't recall whether I did or not. I figure, you know what? If I don't remember recall if we did it or not, our listeners won't either. Um, so, in lieu of just a single curse word, I realized this week that I do occasionally, being a, not really a technophobic, but a dude in his 50s who is bad at all of the stuff that's out there these days. Now and again, someone in a professional setting will send me a text message along with some sort of abbreviation that I don't recognize, and then I have to go to Google and say and type that abbreviation in along with the word meaning afterward because I don't know what it stands for.
I have two teenagers.
Yeah.
I
So
do this
so
often. Yes.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, just because you're immersed in it more than I am, maybe you have sort of greater fluency than I do. But
Oh
some
no, not at all.
so 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 this is from an article on mentalfloss.com. There actually is a whole bunch of research into this and where these things come from and et cetera. But they actually compiled this is according to I think Google results, the top 20 terms that are routinely searched on because people go, what the fuck does that mean? And then quickly
Oh,
goes
okay.
go search on it. So most of these you will know. There probably a quarter of these like, wait, what? So SMH, you probably know that one. That's the one that's searched on the most.
That would be shit in my hall. No, that's shaking my head. Yeah.
Searched on a quarter of a million times a month.
Good Lord.
Yeah. POV, point of view.
Hmm.
You knew NSFW.
Not safe for work.
Yeah, pretty obvious. FOMO.
A fear of missing out.
Yep. One of my favorites, which I learned only fairly recently, and I've started using it. TLDR.
Too long, didn't read.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Shows up
Uh,
on Reddit a lot.
right. IYKYK.
IY IYKYK. And K,
Searched on 100,000 times a month.
I know it, but I can't place it off the top of my head. I've
If you know, you know.
yeah. So
OFC.
if I knew, I knew. OFC of fucking course.
Right.
Is that right? I
Yes,
was
that's
just
right.
guessing. That's right.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah. Some of these are pretty easy. IMO,
In my opinion,
IIRC.
if I recall correctly,
So that one, I don't think I've ever seen that one before. Uh, HMU.
I don't know how many units. I have no idea.
How many units? That's right. Wow, you got it right. Hit me up.
Oh, hit me up. Okay.
LMAO.
Laughing my ass off.
This is another one I didn't know until doing this research. AFK,
I don't know.
away from keyboard.
Oh,
Yeah.
la di
So
da.
just say away. Just say whatever. Oh, out of office.
Go away, Baton.
Right. Fuck off. Right. Baiting. Right. NGL.
No good legumes.
Yeah. Not gonna lie. NGL. Not gonna lie.
Okay, gotcha.
This one must be from TikTok or there sort of has to be a visual component to this one. OOTD.
OOTD. Only one. I don't know.
Outfit of the day.
Yeah, I
So it's
wouldn't
like a
be able to
caption
place
with
that.
with someone.
Yeah,
Right. Number 15, IG.
I guess.
Correct. TBH.
To be honest,
Correct. TTYL.
Tata for now. No, that's not it. I don't know.
Talk to you later. Yeah.
Talk to you later. Tata for now.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so lots of these are actually, I mean, part of the reason why I hate these things so much is several of these have become words. I mean, so people use them in lieu of instead of laughing, people will say "lol." Like, that's you can't do that. So TTYL, DM, you know that one.
Don't mess.
Direct
No,
message,
direct message. Yeah.
and then YOLO.
You only live once.
Yep. FWIW.
For what it's worth.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, there you go. Some terms out there that some of these I like. TLDR is hands down my favorite though.
Well, it's so useful in so many situations. I have to look at my own scripts and say that. Um,
Shut the fuck up.
one that I get from one of my kids often is MHM.
MHM.
Yeah, which I asked him, what does that mean? He was like, what do you think it means? Um, as I understand it, MHM, because I'll say, hey, you doing
My
all right?
hamburger meat. No, I don't know.
No, I'll say, you doing all right? And he'll say MHM. Mm-hmm. That's basically what he's.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so stupid.
Eh,
Children.
a yes or a Y would have,
Right.
sufficed.
Or an okay. You don't have to create a whole new thing. Right. Fine. Right.
And
Anyway.
this has been two old guys yelling at clouds section of
What?
Dream Idiots.
Who? I don't think this interweb thing is going to catch on at all.
Dude, what was wrong with a string and a couple of old tin cans for information? Thank you, Bryan. Those
Yeah.
are
So,
I feel like I knew more than I didn't on that one.
right.
So that was
TLDR. TLDR.
TLDR.
Okay. So, moving on to my little tale this week.
Supplied by a listener.
Supply this, so I actually had seen something about this story in passing, and then someone wrote in without I assume was making a suggestion. There was no text with this. There was just a URL link. Just
Oh
here.
God.
We're just sort of ominous. Like this going to be a ransom note. What is this? So we looked at it like, oh wow, okay. So here we go. So picture this. Yeah, you're walking hand in hand with your lovely spouse at the beach.
Okay.
Your young children are running ahead, maybe with your dog. And you're there and you're at the beach. There's all kinds of freedom. It's a very safe environment, right? You're
Mhm.
obviously going to watch your children as they wade into the surf. If they're small, maybe you roll up the pant legs so they get a little bit wet. But they're going to be pumped up and behaving like rabid dogs and running all over the place, looking for shells, avoiding the clumps of seaweed, maybe chasing after a seagull or two. What's the worst thing that could possibly happen at the beach? What's the worst thing you could find? Well, I'll tell you. On August 20th, 2007, a girl is out for a walk on the beach with her family on Jedediah Island in British Columbia, Canada. So this is in the Salish Sea.
Oh, I know what this is.
Okay. So the Salish Sea, which I've been in this area a couple times, is basically directly north of the Puget Sound. It's more or less the area between sort of the city of Vancouver and Vancouver Island, Victoria.
Uh-huh.
Port Angeles is the little port city that's in Washington State, that's in the U.S. And so you have Orcas Island, Salt Spring Island, a whole bunch of islands out there in that sort of channel. And
Yeah, I'm
so this,
impressed. You know your islands.
yes. So
That's impressive.
I've been up there a couple times. So the Salish Sea. So this girl's out for a walk with her family, and she comes across a blue and white running shoe just sitting on the beach.
Hmm.
The shoe is a men's size 12, and
Okay.
you would think as I would if I saw a shoe on the beach. This is something that was lost, discarded. Someone dropped it on the beach, or it fell off a boat. Whatever. It's not a keepsake. It's not like finding a really cool shell or a cool animal. There's a shoe. Whatever. Upon closer inspection, oh look, there's also a sock inside the shoe. She looks even closer when she picks it up and realizes, oh wait, there's also a human foot inside the sock. So I have been to the beach, many beaches, many times over many, many years. And as far as I can recall, I've never found a closed toed shoe on the beach. I don't think my first thought would have been, I wonder if there's a foot in that shoe if I had seen one. I certainly have seen lots of shoes that were lost or abandoned in other locations, just out driving around. Occasionally you see a
Sure.
shoe on the highway, on the side of the road. Someone lost a shoe. And I see a shoe, and I go, oh wow, there's a lost and empty, sad shoe. There's not a foot in it. So this first foot is followed by others. So a week later, a second foot shows up on nearby Gabriola Island. and police now are a little bit surprised. The one thing about this that is a little bit alarming, they're both size 12, but the second foot is wearing a different shoe and they're both right feet. Okay, so this is a different person who's also lost a foot. So, according to Gary Cox, who's with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, he says, quote, two being found in such a short period of time is quite suspicious. Finding one foot is like a million to one odds, but finding two is crazy. So, Gary Cox here being the master of the fucking obvious. Since then, since this starts in 2007, other feet start showing up in the Salish Sea, both in British Columbia and then further south in Puget Sound, closer to Seattle. And pretty much all of these feet are wearing tennis shoes at the time, but there's one or two cases where they're in hiking boots. So other feet start showing up over many months. And so I'm not going to go into great detail here, but here's just sort of here's a partial list. August 20th, 2007, Jedediah Island. Here's the first one we found. Size 12 man's foot in a size 12 Adidas shoe. It's it's disarticulated from whatever the body was. We don't know who this body is, but a man's right foot. August 26, 2007, Gabrielle Island, the one I mentioned a moment ago, a second right foot, also disarticulated at the ankle, waterlogged, probably was dragged ashore by some animal, but hard to know. Size 12 white Reebok, and so sold worldwide, mostly in North America. February 8th, 2008, a right foot, size 11 Nike. May 22nd, 2008, Kirkland Island. Now the first woman comes into this, a blue and white New Balance sneaker. And this one's found in a basically a delta, and also this one's also wearing a sock. It was thought to have been washed down from a nearby river, and this is an older shoe manufactured in '99. June 19th, 2008, a man's left foot was found by two hikers floating in a delta. This is actually the pair to the second shoe that was the second foot that was found. So now we have this man's feet. August 1st, 2008, right foot inside a man's black size 11 shoe found by a camper. This was in, I think this was in right near Port Angeles in the Washington side. So right near the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And
I
so
beg your pardon, sir.
what did you call me?
Yeah.
November 11, 2008, Richmond, BC, a woman's left foot. October 27, 2009, Richmond, BC, a right foot in a size 8.5 Nike running shoe. Lots of running shoes. Police are beginning to become a little bit concerned. There is the rumors going around. Was there a plane crash that we don't know about? Is there a serial killer? What the hell is going on? Because this doesn't make any sense. Someone does some research. There actually are a few situations or stories of disarticulated limbs, feet, or lower legs showing up about 100 years previous in boots. There are two or three cases
What?
from the 1890s where in this exact same location there are two or three cases where a boot washes ashore and it's got the bottom half of the leg still in the boot. December 5th,
And the
2010.
Canadian said, "Hey, what's this about?"
Right.
Right? Right? Get it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Very good. Very good.
We just lost our Canadian listener.
August 30th, 2011, gender unknown, foot found in a men's white and blue size 9 runner, floating next to a marina. November 4th, 2011, a man's right foot, size 12 again, this time in a hiking boot, found by some campers. December 10th, 2011, Lake Union, Seattle, human leg bone and foot in a black plastic bag under the ship canal bridge. And January 26, 2012, another one. This one in Vancouver. May of 2014, Seattle, Washington. Another one. All told, 21. February 7th, 2016, Vancouver Island. found a foot and sock and running shoe just on the beach. February 12th, 2016, Port Renfrew on Vancouver Island. It's the pair that showed up 5 days previous. December 8th, 2017, remains of a leg with shoe attached wash up on near the settlement of the Jordan River on Vancouver Island. These remains are later identified as belonging to a 79-year-old man named Stanley Okamoto of Silverdale, Washington. They do some DNA analysis. I sent you an email before we started. You can open that email up if you want.
I am opening. I am opening.
And we're opening.
And that is a black shoe with a white sock and what looks to be the lower half of a leg sticking out of it.
But just bare bones. It is
Just
tibia
bare
and
bones.
fibula and right. And just bare bones with the shoe and sock still attached. So all told, 21 or 22 through November 21st of 2021. November 21, a size 7 Brahma work boot found washed up. And so it's like, so where do all these things keep coming from? And so, I mean, again, because this is we live in the day and age of the internet, and theories just go nuts. I feel confident that you could find all kinds of people who still believe this is some sort of axe murdering lunatic out there killing people in the Northwest, but it's not.
Well, it's not like the Northwest has a history of producing serial killers, Brian. I mean, come on.
How dare I suggest that? So the plane crash idea is still out there. The serial killer out there idea is still out there. So some researchers, oceanographers, set about trying to solve this using basically fake cadavers and figuring out how to replicate this using pig carcasses. What's going on here with bodies in this area and the tides, etc. It turns out the way the prevailing wind and the tide is that it's very heavily from west to east, which makes perfect sense. And what happens, with all the true crime podcasts that are out there, you and I have heard dozens, maybe hundreds of stories where there is an awful crime committed and some dumb fuck is trying to dispose of a body in water, and the body won't sink. And so that has to be weighted down. They go through all these steps to make sure the body sinks. Well, that's because a body that was killed by other means still has a lot of air in it. Bodies that drown sink pretty readily. So if the lungs are full of water, it'll go right to the bottom. And so
that's why you have to stab a corpse through the lungs to deflate it a bit.
Thank you, Goodfellas. That's the lesson of Goodfellas: is if you're going to murder, make sure you right. We teach here. We hope you learn. So
no, we don't in this case.
So all these folks were either suicide. Suicides. One of them definitely was let from a bridge. One was categorized as being sort of death by misadventure. Went out for a hike, tripped and fell, slid down a slope into the water, drowned, sank. In this part of the world, bodies sink. They reach the bottom, or at least they're away from the surface of the water, and then the ocean does its job basically and starts to decompose the body, and all the little critters come out, arthropods and whatever, start chewing on these bodies, and it's real easy for all these big ass crabs, etc., start gnawing away. They can't get through a Reebok or whatever, right? But they'll happily chew away at an ankle. They chew away at an ankle. They disarticulate the body, and as soon as the foot is free from the rest of the body, because of the way modern shoes are manufactured, it floats to the surface. Right. So there are all these people here that in Canada and in the Northwest who had a bit of a panic there for a while, that they were convinced something awful was happening, when they really just overreacted a bit. So there is no serial killer. There was no plane
Oh,
crash.
there's a serial killer. He just probably doesn't have anything to do with these feet. There's
Or,
definitely a serial killer out there somewhere.
they'll just take your shoes off first, then I'll kill you. Right. So anyway, the mystery of the Salish Sea. If you're in this part of the world or any part of the world and you find a shoe on the beach, just maybe stay away from it. Just and really keep your children away from it. That would just be awful. Oh, look, Daddy, there's a shoe. Oh my
Were there
God.
any feet found in capas? Do you remember capas?
No.
Capas, the ones with two laces. We
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
remember those? Yeah, we went to high
Yeah, well,
school with the daughter of the guy who invented those. Yeah,
we did.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Bay Area Brad, who's a friend of the pod,
I remember him.
we used to give him shit because I recall because I loved Capas, but they went out of business in '83 somewhere in there. But he still had a pair of Capas he wore when we were all in college together
Oh my
that were
God.
8 or 10 years old that still fit him because he was he grew a ton in whatever in middle school, and so they still fit. And so yeah, I remember Capas vividly. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a lace for the bottom part of your foot and then a
Hmm.
lace at the
Hmm.
top part of the foot.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway.
so when the feet go floating, how do we you said one of them was found in a work boot or a hiking boot?
Hmm.
How do those float? I mean, I can see tennis shoes, but a hiking boot or a work boot seems to
I
me
mean,
that would sink.
you'd think. I mean, it must have had enough buoyancy. I don't know. Had enough buoyancy to it, or air in the pockets around. Depending on the nature of the boot. When I found, I mean, the experts that did the research into this cited, the manner in which these shoes are made in current day as the reason
Mhm.
why they floated. But then they go, oh, but there was this example in 1898 and 1902 and whatever, where half a leg came up in a standard leather boot. Like, how the hell that happened then? So, a pocket of air got in there somewhere. I don't know.
Do bones float? I don't know.
It's a
He's
good
staring
question.
intently at the
I think I
ceiling.
think I
I
think
don't.
bones do float. There's a ton of air in bones.
Right. I don't know.
I'll be right back. No, I think bones do float.
um. Yeah. The Salish feet mystery is just it. I haven't looked too closely into it, and I didn't know about. I've heard about it. The big thing I always heard was that they were victims of mafia hits.
Hmm.
Um. Or specifically organized crime from Eastern Europe, and they were somehow making their way over here to America. But it makes sense that if a body's down there and starts decomposing, the first
Right.
place is going to get disarticulated is at the joints,
Right.
probably the smaller ones, right?
Glub, 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 glub. There it goes.
Crabs are like, hey, buffet.
Oh, wait. Going up.
And those
Anyway.
feet belong to DB Cooper. Um, that's a great story, Brian. I thanks for looking into that because I'd heard things about it off and on, but never really um, took the time to check it out. But yeah, it just accidents, falling off cruise ships, hiking, walking into the ocean. You said jumping off a bridge.
Yeah, one was a girl who jumped off a bridge. Um, there actually is at least there's one source at least where a couple of these folks were missing. One or two were known to be suffering with depression, and the fact that the feet turned up actually kind of proved to be helpful for the family because it kind of offered
Mm,
some weird version of closure. Because it's like, okay,
yeah,
Tommy's now gone. What happened to Tommy? Well, we assume he offed himself because he's been depressed his entire life, but we don't know. And then
yeah.
Tommy's feet show up. Well, okay, now we know. So knowing, I guess, provides something, I guess. But they seem quite confident that none of these folks were victims of foul play.
Kind of reminds me of when I was living in New York and Spalding Gray went missing, and
Yeah,
everybody speculated that he jumped off the Staten Island ferry, which is exactly what he did, and his body popped up the next spring. I think it was intact. Very sad.
yeah,
Folks, get help. Talk to someone. Talk to anyone. Don't go
right.
jump off a bridge. Don't I'm not going to stop you from being a mafia hit, but don't Go talk to someone. Talk to anyone.
Right.
Well, thank you, Bryan. That was a slightly disgusting story. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I aim to please. And thanks for tuning in, folks. We appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. And we got plenty more great stuff in store. Working on some. I'm working on a two-part story, Bryan, for a future episode. We've got a lot of stuff coming, so stick around and be
Yep.
good to each other, please, and be good to yourself.